Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhetamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Samprapte Sanhite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dakram Karane Nari Sthanabhara Nabhi Desham Drishtva Maga Mohavesham Etan Mamsa Rasadi Vikaram Manasi Vichintya Varam Varam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Nalini Dalagata Jalamati Taralam Tadvajjivita Matishayakapalam Vidhi Vyadhim Abhimana Grastam Lokam Shokahatam Chasamastam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. When Shankara says that Nari Sthanabhara Nabhi Desham, the breasts of the women and also Nabhi Desham, that is the umbilical position and all those things, Drishtva Maga Mohavesham. These are the things which are creating the moha commonly. Etan Mamsa Vasadi Vikaram. Both these things are nothing but Mamsa, the flesh and blood and all those things. It is what is that Vikaram, it is not negative, but it is the way that it has taken the shape. Manasi Vichinteya Varam Varam. What is that we need to think of it is Bhaja Govindam. That's what Shankara says. When he says that, the whole idea is that the mankind, for that matter, any species on this earth, the most important aspect of the species is to maintain the species maintenance, species continuation, which is supposed to be reproduction. And reproduction requires that attraction towards the opposite gender so that the attraction takes place. So when Shankara says in Mahamudgara Stotra, it is not just about women he is talking about, but it is a question of taking about the opposite gender. And particularly he considers about the idea of association with this Nari Sthanabhara, that means to say breast of a woman. It is a very deep psychological implications in that. And that is that the whole idea of life is nothing but the jiveshna, clinging to the life. And when child is born, the first thing is the child will rush to the breasts for the sake of milk. In fact, there was one video which was I had seen it when they were showing about the importance of breast milk for the child. It was so beautiful that the child comes out of the mother's womb and just cleans in 1 second and then keeps the little child on the mother's womb. The child crawls to the breast. Within about 5 minutes, the child is there at the breast and drinking the milk. That means the child knows where the milk is, where the food is there, where is the survival that is available for the child. So therefore, breast is something which is extraordinary arrangement by the God to see that your life is protected there, so that you go for that. It is like the way that of course, here at least human being and the mother is there, the child goes towards the breast milk. Whereas imagine the places where the mother is not around, like the way that I had happened to visit the Turkey. There is one place, island, where the turtles that they lay eggs in the sand and then they go away. And the eggs hatch inside the sand after such a long time, actually. And then when the eggs hatch, it's early morning that the eggs hatch. It is between 3 and 4, 3, 5 in the morning. Millions of eggs hatch, millions of these turtles come out of the egg, and then they rush towards the water. I was wondering, how did they know that the water is on that side? It is not the question of that there is some slope, therefore that they go. But the idea is that even where the dune is there, that means on this side of the dune, the turtle is there, but on the other side, water is there. The turtles that they just climb up the dunes, and then go to the water. It's amazing to see that it's not one or two turtles. The millions of turtles go towards that. That means to say they know where the life is there, where they can survive. In fact, I just picked up few turtles and then put it in the opposite direction of their journey. They immediately turn around 180 degrees and then go towards water. It's amazing to see that how that there is so much of an urge to live, and where the life is available is something which is hidden there behind it. Somewhere deep in subconscious level, this is imprinted. And the same thing is with the child. Every child has that tendency to go towards that mother's milk, because that is something which really gives him life. And then also that it is such a thing that it is a soft and gentle, the child can really enjoy it. So therefore, right from the beginning, the impression of the child is to go towards his breast. So this is something which is very natural, very obvious in the case of a child. And in the tribal areas where the mothers feed the children as long as that they would like to have it, and there is no restriction on that, there is not so much of an attraction towards that breast. But whereas in the case of the grown-up urban population, literate population, that we try to see that the child is early removed from the mother's breast. So that means to say that there is vasana in the child, there is samskara in the child to go towards the breast, and then you try to leave the child from that breast. So therefore, that vasana is waiting for that manifestation of that. And probably this is something which is there at the background. That's why you can see the temples and all that. Women, the pictures are depicted with a big breast. The big breast actually indicates about the prosperity, about the good health, and about the way that it is supposed to be, the way that it can feed. So this kind of an idea that is given in this breast, and the description also about the breast that is there everywhere, including the idea that you can see that a woman is supposed to be represented by the breast. So therefore, that we have the Shiva and Parvati. The Parvati is supposed to be indicated by the breast. Shiva is supposed to be indication of the phallus. So these are the things which are symbolically that they have come. When Shankara says that Nadini, Nari Sthanabhara Napi Desham, it is not a question of any awkwardness that is there, but it is the description of something which is psychologically it connects with the people. Second thing is Nabi. Nabi is something where that the child is born, so they're connected with the mother. That's why it is called as umbilical cord connection. And unless until you break that umbilical cord, that the child will not be independent. That is the reason many children who do not grow up, even if they grow up, they still hold on to the parents. They do not want to come out of that parents' house. Everything that they have to say about their decision will have to hold on to. When this is the way it is going on, that they say that he has not yet, his umbilical cord is not yet been severed. So that is the, not only that, there's another thing so much deeply psychologically imprinted on the child's mind. When he grows up also, when he marries, the first thing that he looks at the girl is to see his mother's picture in that. So therefore, actually, he is replacing that mother aspect that's there within him. Every human being has these two components, one of the male and the female component. And that female component is something which is attractive, because basically that he would like to fulfill that female component that's there within him with the world, with the help of the world outside. A child, and there is a tendency also in the girl to become like a mother very easily. She takes care of everything, and that's a very natural tendency that she has. So therefore, this attraction towards the Nari Sanabhara Nabhi Desham is something which is very natural, very spontaneous. It is supposed to be species maintenance. In all the other species, that the maintenance, it is there, but then the moment that the child becomes independent, grows up, then the mother will not hold on to it. Whereas It is this vasana for the human being is the one which holds on to it. And this is what we call it as moha avesham. Moha means it is the infatuation or it is the attraction, and that's what is attracting towards that. So, drishtva maga moha avesha, and not to be caught up by this particular thing. It is not to condemn the idea of woman, but not only that, it is about the opposite sex. In case when he talked about all these things, it looks like that this moha avesham is supposed to be only by women on the man, but it is not like that. It's only representative, but otherwise, both in man and woman, it is the same kind of a thing that's there. Women is attracted towards man is attracted towards women, because that basically that she would like to fulfill the other part of that is there with an unexpressed part of it, which is supposed to be represented by beautiful concept, that Indian concept that we have, and that is the concept of what is called as the Ardhanarishwara. It's such a beautiful concept of Ardhanarishwara that we have both these things, and then all that what we are trying to do is to see that um, how we can the complement that aspect of it, the other aspect of it, by coming together. This is what is the idea that they have. Having seen that, like the way that the man is attracted towards the woman, and then he says that etad mamsa vasadi vikaram. It's all the modifications of the mamsa, that means to say flesh, that is there. You mean to say that only woman's sharira is the mamsa vikaram, and that means to say it is something which is modification, and manasi vichintya varam varam. That means it's going to disturb the mind of a man. Equally, that a man also can be disturbing about the in the mind of a woman. So it has both the sides. It is applicable. Not that she is made out of mamsa. That means to say the flesh and blood and all those things. Whereas he is made out of not flesh and blood. He is made out of something different. Nothing different. Actually, the same thing. That in fact, whatever that he is born, he gets it from his mother only. And all that is there. He gets it from the mother and father. So therefore, there is nothing like difference between one and the other. But only thing is that for the poetry's sake that he mentioned about that. Otherwise, it is the same thing. Both of them have the same issue, man and a woman. But why it is there? It is like the way that this attraction is for the sake of procreation, for the sake of species maintenance. All the other species that are there, they stop at the species maintenance, they go beyond that. That's why you can see that in the case of animals and all that, when there is a season, that's when they mate. Otherwise, that they don't even mate. They don't even come to anywhere like that. It is very natural, spontaneous for them. They have a internal kind of a mechanism to see that it is stopped. Whereas in the case of human being, this mechanism is not available. But what is that mechanism that is given to him? Why it is given to him? The freedom is given to go in the upper direction. The freedom is given to go in the upper direction. That's why it is said that man is the only species out of 80 billion species that are there in the earth which can find the divinity within. This ability is there within him to go in the upper direction, to crawl, to go in the upper direction. But then what happens? Because the freedom is given to go in the upper direction, that very freedom itself can create a problem for us. That's why it is not the freedom that's important, but along with the freedom, that the wisdom to see that not getting caught by the lower instincts way that this particular lesson idea has been given by Shankara. So therefore, this freedom is there within us, and the freedom means it's not only going upwards, it's going downwards also. If somebody says that they have all the freedom to go in the upper direction only, it is not real freedom. You can always go down in the downward direction. And many times what happens is that it is the matter which brings you down in the downward direction. It's the consciousness which takes us in the upward direction. Look at the flame. Flame always trying to go in the upward direction. The prana that's there within is also is trying to go in the upward direction. But the body drags us, body attracts us, body brings us down. So therefore, Nari Sthanabhara Nabhi Vesham Desham Drishtva Moha Vesham Etan Mamsa Vasadi Vikaram Manasivincha Varam Varam. The idea is that Bhaja Govindam is, and another thing is, this body is there outside, and then Govindam is something which is there about inside that's going on. When it is going on inside, then it is the Bhaja Govindam. It is not the question of that you are chanting outside. Yes, sometimes you manifest outside, but basically that is there underneath. Why? Because the whole creation itself is nothing but divinity. But everything is nothing but the same consciousness, same divine, same God, same Govinda. But Govinda is hidden. You don't see it outside. Many people at many levels also do not, however much that they do sadhana, they do all kinds of things. In spite of the fact, they find it difficult to see the Govinda underneath. That's what Shankara says. That another thing is that the more and more that you are learning about the knowledge about anything that is there in the form of external world, even the knowledge is also external world, it's going to catch you up. It's going to attract you towards that. You can easily get caught up in that kind of a thing. So therefore, that he says that he cautions us saying that the undercurrent that's going on in the form of Govinda, let it go on. Let it go on. That is what we have such a beautiful story in the Upanishad. A saint who Mauni Swami, he doesn't speak anything. And then there is he was sitting under a tree meditating quietly, and then robber comes around and thought that he can take anything from the place. But what is there, it's a simple hermitage, there is nothing available. So he enters into the hermitage, he didn't get anything. He got so annoyed, came outside and looked at this man sitting and meditating deep in samadhi, and then he pierces his dagger into his chest. And the saint laughs and opens his eyes and says that you cannot deceive me, you are also Brahman. Yes, after all, everybody is Brahman. But then even in the time of death, he could see that you are also Brahman. So that transformation is something which is necessary that we need to understand. That's what is the real spiritual journey, to be able to see the divine. What happens for us is that we don't see that even the people that who are supposed to be respectful, etc., etc., all those things, we still resist from seeing that there is divinity within them. Forget about in all other things, but it is difficult for us to see the divinity in the world outside. So when you see the divinity within the world outside, that's when we say Bhaja Govindam takes place. So all these things are outside, which are provided for our interaction, for our activity, and that's how, whether it is the object outside or the opposite gender created outside, is to see that we maintain the species or we involve in the world outside. When somebody involves in the world outside in that way, then what happens is that he still performs the duty that he's supposed to do it, and then later on that he will also be able to go in his spiritual journey. In order to go to the spiritual journey, what Shankara means is not that you have to leave everything of the world and go out. When he says that it is the etad mamsa vasadi vikara, he does not mean to denigrate the body, but he wants to make us to use that this body is a very special purpose. It is given all these things to see that how we can go in the upper direction. This journey in the upper direction is something which is really very important. Nalini Dalagata Jalamati Taralam Tattva Jivata Matishaya Japalam Vidhi Vyadhi Abhimana Grastam Lokam Shokataram Samastam. This world outside is Nalini Dalagata Jalamati Taralam. It's like the way you see the morning dew on the leaf, and the dew on the leaf It accumulates itself and comes to the tip of that particular leaf. And there it forms a nice, wonderful bubble. And that's a fresh water bubble that you see. And the morning rising sun reflects on that. You can see the whole different colors of the sun being reflected, and it's such a and it will be shining, and it's so much that it will be shining that it is almost like gives an appearance of a pearl. In fact, when such a particular thing, when the pearl sees, pearl also feels ashamed because that pearl is not as beautiful, as natural, as shining as much as that dew droplet that is there at the tip of the leaf. But then what is that happens? What is that happens is that a small little wind blowing can take away that particular drop down. Or even if it is there, because of the wind that it might dry up after a while that there is no more drop. So this is what he indicates that Nalini Dalagata Jalamati Taralam. Ati Taralam, that means it is so sensitive, it is so uncertain, it is so short-lived that this drop of water, dew drop that is there, is so short-lived, so fragile in its existence. Though it has got all that beautiful shine, beautiful shape, and everything that is there, but you cannot depend on that. You cannot wait on that. Tadvad jivita atichaya shapalam. Even the life also, therefore, it is actually like the dew drop, which is uh, vulnerable to any wind or anything like that. Even our life is also vulnerable, and we have seen that in the COVID. What happened to the life? Such a huge population that is there, how many people are there, how much of research that we have done, in spite of it, has it not arrested us down? Has it not us crippled? So it just we are confined. And we have lost life. So many people lost life. So therefore, just see that human life is so delicate. In fact, the more and more that we have grown, more delicate, and the villager, the coarse person is not that delicate as much as the refined person, like a city person, and all those things. Not only the person that's about the delicateness of the human being, but look at all the other animals. They are safe. Somebody said that if you put a bomb on New York, all the people will die, everything will go, only the buildings will be left behind. But only thing is that what remains will be cockroaches. They will not die. The same thing happened in Chernobyl. The whole atomic blast that has taken place because of the Chernobyl accident, people died, and the trees are also something that they are all burnt out. But there are some species, some insects, they still survive, and the new species are emerging out of it. So there is some life that survives, which is supposed to be strong, whereas the life which is supposed to be atitaralam, that means very sensitive, and that is what human life is. So atishayataralam, chapalam, it is unstable also. That with the vyadhi grastam, and not only that, any moment it can get the vyadhi. And another thing that it can happen is that it is abhimana grastam. That means to say, what is there, but we become egoistic about that. There is some very important idea that he conveys by saying that abhimana grastam, it is, though people know that it is sharp-lived, they get attracted towards that. They go behind it, saying that anyway you said it, this is something which is short-lived. The joy that is there short-lived in this particular thing, afterwards it will go away. So I don't want to lose it. I want to go for it. What is supposed to be permanent? Brahman is permanent, Atman is permanent. And let me not go for all those things later on. Let me wait for that, because anyway they are permanent. If not this life, next life. If not next life, another life. It can go on. I can go on going for that particular thing, life after life after life. But whatever that is there in this life is something which is short-lived. So short-lived has greater attraction towards me. So therefore we get caught up in that. This is what is the idea, what he calls it as the form of grastam, moha grastam. This is what abhimana grastam. So abhimana is just that it is short-lived. I know it is short-lived, therefore that I need to go behind it so that I do not want to miss that, miss this opportunity of being with this now. Later on, I can go for God is permanent. Somebody came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and said that, look, you have given up everything and then you are such a great saint, you are an extraordinary, wonderful saint. And you don't have any house of your own, you don't have any family, you don't have anything like that. And all that what you are, morning to evening, day after day, I see that you are only lost in the God. And memory of God, you are such a great saint. And Ramakrishna, on the other hand, touches his feet and says that you are a much greater saint. I am a small little fellow. And that fellow did not understand what Ramakrishna meant. But he said that, you know what, for the sake of attaining God, I gave up all those things, whereas, but you are such a great tyagi, you are such a great relinquisher that for the sake of getting all these small little simple things, you have given up such a big thing like God that is there within a God pursuit. So you are greater saint because you have a greater tyaga that you have done. I have done a very simple tyaga of whatever is supposed to be material thing. So anything that you see in this life is something which is short-lived and something which is really impressive, shining and all that, like the way that it is at the tip of the leaf in the form of a dewdrop. And that's something which is much more shorter living than the flow of the river. The water that's there in the flow of the river, that you don't find this kind of glitter, this kind of attraction charm, that you can find it in this small little droplet that is there hanging out. In spite of the fact that you know that it is short-lived and all those things, it does not give away anything like that. Whatever we know very well that it is short-lived, it's not permanent, it's not a forever, but in spite of it, we still go behind it. That's what is the weakness of a human being. Weakness of a human being is that even if it is short, we know that it is very short, we go behind it. And we think that this life for us is something which is eternal. Others die, we say sorry that he died, whereas we never think that it's a message that is given to us for dying also. We are also dying one day or the other. But that is not reflected in us. In fact, I've seen people supposed to be the cancer patients and dying, all that like that. But then next to bed patient, another cancer patient, when he dies, this person who is there, he shares his sympathy. Poor fellow, he died. But actually, is it not a message for you that you will also die one day? It's approaching you also the same day. But then they don't realize that what happens to us. In fact, so very beautifully said in one of the Sufi stories, there, the Sufi, mm, in one of the stories of Prophet, that is the Prophet by Umar Khayyam, he writes a beautiful story that is, when God sends a goat, he says in the ear of the goat, saying that, look, you're a very special goat. You are not like other goats. The other goats will die, but you will never die. So deeply that he has imprinted in the mind of the goat, the god. Therefore, that the goats are being slaughtered. The next goat that is there in front of you, he will be slaughtered, and then crying for the life and all that. He does that, but then this goat thinks that because that's a poor goat, that's why it happened like that. Whereas I go to heaven, I will not die like that. God waits for me at the heaven. So we have this kind of stories where they say that, look, because I follow certain thing, I go to the heaven. And then you cannot go to the heaven. Nobody else can go to the heaven. Only I can go to the heaven. So this is the idea that you have, saying that all other things are short-lived, whereas I'm supposed to be short-lived. I'm forever. This is what is the way that people think of it. Nalini dalagata jalamati dalle tattva jivita atishaya chapalam. Vidhi, understand what is that? One thing is vyadhi. Vyadhi is something which is like a delicate state that's there, which is called as the health, and then moving away from this health, this way or that way, it's like a walking on the walking on the tightrope. The tightrope walking people, the person who is walking on the tightrope, he swings on one side or the other. It happens like that. You might fall this side or that side. Any side that you fall, it's all falling down. But then he tries to balance very carefully, consciously with that awareness. So our health is also like that. Yati is something which deviates from our own nature. So it is constantly happening like that. If 2 days that you don't feel food, don't eat food, you can see that already that you start feeling weak, you start feeling not healthy. Why wail? That cup of coffee early morning that you are preferred to have, and if that is not there, look at what happens to you. Without that coffee, the people lose their ability to think, ability to start their activities. They become mad. They become and they complain, saying that I have a headache. Why the headache is there? It is because that morning cup of coffee was not there. The moment that is not there, that you become already sick. Vyati is actually waiting at that point of time so that you drifted from the center line. You drifted from the center that you are. So this is the body with all the senses has any possibility, every possibility, any number of chances to see that you drift from this. Weather changes, already you change. You see that you are sneezing. And why you are sneezing is because it's cold. Already that you change. But how many people are living in that condition happily? You can also live like that, but then we become very vulnerable from that because not only that we are sensitive, but we're attached to that sensitivity. Vyadhi Abhimana Grastham. And that Abhimana is conceit, is uh, ego aspect of it. So we do not accept it, we do not recognize this particular aspect. It's so easy for us to get easily caught up by that. Like, for example, stomach is full. There's a alarm that comes from within that stomach is full, don't have to eat. But then you continue to eat. Animals do not do that. They do not unnecessarily abuse themselves. They listen to their inner voice. The divinity that's there within, they listen to it. Accordingly, that they work. That's why animals you see in the forest, they got all the freedom. They can eat anything. They can sleep whole day. They don't have to wake up. But in spite of the fact that all those things are there, you can see you don't find any obese animal in the forest. Whereas the animals in our yard, they become obese. The dog in my house becomes obese. The horse in my stable becomes obese. And this is what obesity comes from us. We give it. Otherwise, that they are balanced. Hunger and the food, they are balanced in the case of animals. It does not, where hunger is requirement, then the food is something which is necessary. Okay, it is taken care of. But when hunger more than requirement, it becomes like vasana for us, then we get attached to that. Therefore, he says that disease and conceit is riddled with pangs. And then when that happens, who suffers? It's we who suffer. In spite of the fact that we are the suffering that we go through that, in spite of the fact that we see that there are a number of people in front of us that they suffer, we are ready to advise somebody, but we cannot take that advice. Why? Because our own vasanas, our own inner tendencies, they push us into this aspect of it. We are so much attracted towards all this material comfort, material things outside. That's what is our attraction. Wherever it is that we run behind, we try to acquire more and more. See, in the beginning, what happens is that we require material wealth to see that we are taken care of. I need to eat food, then I require some money to see that I procure food. I have to cover myself with the clothes. When it is winter, it is necessary that I need to cover. So all these things are needs that are there, necessary for us. We need to take care of it. And that's why all this technology development has taken place so that we are taken care of by all the technology. Right from the beginning of the creation on one side, This stress for technology development growth has always been happening. But then what happens? Slowly, steadily, that what happens is that money becomes more important than that what it can do for us. Please understand this very carefully. Money can do a lot of things, but money becomes much more important than what it can do for us. Therefore, what happens is our now the whole rush, everything is behind the money. We want to get more and more money, much more and more money. For what? For tomorrow, for day after tomorrow, for next generation. So this is how basically that we try to become more and more greedy. And that results into what he said. Hmm. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi sakshate dukhi karane. He says that mudajahi dhanagama trishna. Dhana necessary, agama trishna. That means to say, however way that I can get it, how don't let it go from my hand by the grip of the hand. That's what becomes like our own nature. It can be any sort of dhana, any sort of wealth that we can take it. And because what happens is because that in the beginning that it is the senses requirement of senses become important. But as we go ahead, senses requirement for the sake that we need food, we need clothing, we need the money, the tender, which can really cater to all these things. So slowly what happens, it turns toward this money. When it was at the food level, that there is a limitation. That means I need so much of food, I take it. Beyond that, there is no need. And at the moment it turned towards the wealth, then look at the way that it has become much more addictive because there is no upper limit for the wealth. There is an upper limit for your hunger. There is an upper limit for your thirst. Upper limit for your sleeping. But then what happens is that when you convert that in the form of riches, then there is no upper limit for that. Not only that we have no upper limit, but we also try to compare with the others. And wherever it is possible that we go and try to seek for that. That's what in the next sutra he says, Yavadvitto parjana shaktaha tavan nija parivaros raktaha pascha jivati jarjaratehe varta kopina pruchhati yehe bhaja govindam govindam bhaja modhamate. Yavat parjana shakta. As long as that we have ability to earn money, ability to increase our wealth, uparjana shakta, vista uparjana shakta. That means to say the ability to be able to earn money and accrue. Tavan nija parivaro. Then everybody will become like our friends. Everybody wants us. They're interested in us. They inquire about us. They're very dear to us. But whereas Pascha Divati Jarjaragehi, one day it so happened that this body has to make its way out. Journey completes. And this is what the whole journey is in the 5 stages. One is Jayate, that means to say it is taking birth. Vardhate, it grows. Then Uparamate, that means it procreates, multiplies. And then afterwards it stabilizes. Then Apakshiyate, that means introspection. And then Mriyate is the last one. That's why Jatasya hi dhravo mrityu, what is born, mrityu is there along with that. This is what Bhagavad Gita Krishna says. But between these two banks that is there, one is the birth and the other is the death, Jati and then Marana. In between that these other stages are there, and we go through those stages. Whether you want it or not, it just goes on. It just goes on that way. So therefore, this journey continues in between, and that journey is what people in the outside that they can watch it. They see that what is happening within you. You are a child, and later on that you become an adult. Now you are a running member. You are all those things, and everybody watches that. So when you are in that position where you are young, youthful, and you have a lot of abilities that's there within you, and the whole world is there in front of you where you can explore, you become a center of attraction for the whole family. And that's what he says, Yavad Vitto Parjana Sakta, Tavan Nija Parivaro Raktaha. Until that time, Nija Parivaraha, that your own family is interested in you. They try to find out some link or the other, particularly in our culture that we have such a beautiful way that can create link and link and link, and you go 3, 4, 5 generations and all kinds of things that you can develop. We have a very rich network of family. At least now we may reducing, but earlier we used to have that kind of a thing. Just imagine how wide this particular family structure that we used to have. It's all connected with that because the people come to us when we have an ability to do it, when we are able to give something, when we are able to enjoy. Not only that we enjoy, there's another thing also, not only that we cannot enjoy alone, we want others to enjoy with us. We support their enjoyment also. People hold on to us. They want to be with us. So, Yavad Vitta Uparjana Saktaha, Tavan Nija Parivaro Raktaha. So they're all interested. They go, they swarm around us. They come attack like the way that the bees come to the flowers to see that they take the honey. But just imagine that when the bees take the honey, they do another tremendous amount of beautiful work, and that is they also carry the pollen along with the honey attached to their feet, and that pollen they spread it everywhere. That means to say, the reason why the flower attracts the bee to come towards is to see that species maintenance. The, the flower itself cannot go to another flower itself cannot go to another tree and do the pollination that can be possible. But then the bees are the agents who can do that. And the process, the bite that is given for the bees is to be the honey in the form of those flowers. And they come for the sake of honey, but the process, they spread that species and therefore the flowers continue. How beautiful way the whole nature arrangement is there. So therefore that Yavadvitto Parjana Sakta Tavan Nija Parivaru. Because you produce honey, because you produce nice, wonderful fragrance and flower, therefore the bees come to you. So it's a mutual benefit that is there. Parivara Raktaha, because they are interested in that, because you are able to capable of bringing it. Paschat Divat Jajjaragehi Varta Kopina Puchati Dehi. All the wealth, all the abilities, all the capacity, and including all that extraordinary degree of abilities that you have, they all belong to the intellect. They all belong to the intellect. That means to say they are useful for production, productivity that they are useful. They can produce. Like a magic, they can produce. All that is there, and that's the reason why people get towards that. But the moment that goes away, there are 3, 4 reasons why which it can go away. One thing is that you yourself are tired. Yourself are tired. So your efficiency that was there when you are 20 years is not the same when you are 50 years, 60 years. Not only that, the world has changed. In that perception world, when you are 20 years, you are merging with that world so easily with all the ingredients around that. Whereas the moment that you go away from that, you see that you cannot anymore merge in the society outside because you are in the technology. The world has out mastered you, outmanned you, and therefore basically that now you don't have that ability to do that what you used to do. And second means that the world today belongs to them. They are conversant with the world today. And the more and more that we are rigid to the values that we have, we do not want to move, then we will be dead. We will not be living. So therefore, basically what happens is that the moment that you become disciplined and not able to change all those things that are there, naturally the people go away from you. Varta kopina puchati dehi. There's nobody who asks you what's happening in this house. What's there in the house, they don't ask. Everybody faces this kind of thing. So much more important than all that earlier sutra says that one day everything will be dead. But here it is much more important is that even before the death appears, you become irrelevant. You become. So it is necessary to see that I have no more desires. But people carry on that desire so much. They'll have to have that desires to be taken care of. They're not simple. So therefore, basically, these desires drive us. Desires are the one that is driving us. In fact, this Khalil Gibran also says, wrote one thing where he's saying that I was asking why people live, what makes them to live. There's so much of attachment to the life. Small little simple thing comes, threat to the life. They immediately become panic. They immediately want to get the best opinion, and then doctors, this, that, surgeons, all that for the sake of one small little something that happened. So therefore, that your attachment to all these things are there very much. You want to hold on to the life, you want to be with the life. So we have the deeply seated urge in wanting to hold on to the life, but then life is constantly changing. And that's what he says that Pascha Jivati Jarjara Gehe, the body is something which is Jarjara. That means to say it has become porcelain. It become full of pores. I mean, it's not a question of pores that way, Jarjara Dehe. But it is very important thing is that we can't hold on to anything ourselves very strongly. We let go. And that's what is the way that we grow. Slowly, what happens is the let go becomes much more important. So therefore, we'll be able to accept it when nobody comes and talks to us. No relative comes around to you, no children, no nobody. Because they got on their own journey, that they don't have enough time for you. So you, unless until that you try to accept yourself, you try to live for what yourself, then you will not go ahead forward. Otherwise, you'll be sitting here miserable. You'll be shouting at everybody, shouting at everything. You find fault with that. Another very important thing is that the world is moving in a particular pace, and the society, along with its technology, everything is moving in a pace. And then children belong to that youthful, vital activity of the growth that is developing. You do not belong to that. So naturally, it's such a thing that happens is that if you do not go with the world outside, you'll be isolated. And if you try to go with the world outside, that you cannot fit in that world because that you are old and they can. So therefore, that there's a lot of possibility for depression to take place. That's why we see that people, it's a hard work that gives them hypertension. It's not so. Very often it is not like that. Working hard day in and out and all that, they'll be happy, still be working. But the moment that they retire, the moment that you retire, naturally what happens is that you don't have anything to do. The same office which earlier used to respect your work and all, now they say that, yes, why did you come? Because somebody else is doing the work. So you become unwanted, you become rejected. What a big loss, what a big transformation that takes place, that you are no more relevant. You can't keep yourself relevant because of changing circumstances. So world is something which is constantly moving. That is why earlier he said, Atitaralam, that means to say it is never stable, steady, it constantly moves. That's its quality. So allow this quality to take place, allow this moment to take place. And then you sit down, relax, be a watchman, be an observer. This is an unfortunate thing about this, the fortunate thing about this culture, which is unfortunately not there in the other cultures. I always say that in this culture, there is nothing like retirement. They're projected in such a way the whole lifestyle that you grow into the next level, you grow into the next level. Not that you are increasing more of physical activity, more of mental activity, no, nothing. It's more of the idea that you are there to guide somebody else. Otherwise, what happens is, in the Western model of retirement, that A person who is working in the office, that he will be, in fact, by saying that, they will promote him, saying that, after all, you have another 3, 4 years of service. In these 3, 4 years, that you will become at least you will earn something. You retire as chief engineer, don't retire as superintendent engineer. He'll be happy. But then what happens when you are a superintendent engineer and retire from that? It's a smaller hill that you are topping down. Whereas when you are a chief engineer, you are a bigger hill from which that you are dropped down. Now the society until that time was seeing totally different. Now they look at you in totally different. Not only the society, your own family will not care for you anymore because you are already a retired officer. So यावद् वित्तोपार्जनशक्तः तावद् निजपरिवारो रक्तः पश्चात् जीवति जठरदेः वार्तां कोऽपि न पृच्छति गेः. Another thing is that people would like to identify themselves with this rich man. So you become rich, you are earning, everybody would like to join you. Some way or the other, something or the other, you bring in the relationship and then try to identify yourself with that. It's any type of wealth it can be. It can be wealth of knowledge, wealth of wisdom, wealth of gurudom, wealth of anything that is there. You always become. You always get people to get you. In fact, the very fact that any of these wealth that we have, money, power, or knowledge, we try to use all those things to enslave others. We enslave others. We make use of our own intellect to see that you cut down the other's intellect. You make him to shame, saying that, look, this doesn't work with you. So this is how it actually essentially pushes that ego, pushes at the fulfillment. And once it becomes too big, then one day it drops off. That's what he says that Yavad Vitto Parjana Sakta Tavan Nija Parivaro Bhakta. But the moment that Paschad Divati Jarjharadehi, now your body doesn't move forward, your senses are not as perfect as your memory is failing you. So when all these things happen, you still try to behave like a young person, like a teenager, you become a laughing stock. You have to grow up. That's why a Westerner, first time when he saw India, that there are these arrangements that are there, he was so fascinated. He said, what a wonderful culture it must be. Because in our culture, we don't have like that. In our culture, therefore, everybody tries to be young, tries to be youthful, tries to deny the fact that the Paschad Divati Jarjhara Dehe Varta Kope Chatigehe. So that sentence of the sentence which says that, come on, that you don't have to be young anymore, you have to be old. In fact, I remember one of the Indians, when he went abroad, his own, he was in abroad for all the years, and then he came back to India, and then he met one of his family members, and then the young little girl family member was supposed to be at that time joining him. Then she got married, and then she has child, and then grown up, and then 18, 19 years they got married, and early the child birth is there. And that little child, in what way they have to introduce this man? Said he is Tata, his grandfather. Oh, he got so angry for the word that you are used, grandfather for me. What an unfortunate thing that you do not gracefully grow. When you do not gracefully grow, then Varta Kopina Pruchati Gehi. Nobody asks how are you doing, what's happening with you. So you become totally isolated because you try to identify yourself with the younger generation. You don't fit in. The older generation, you don't want to go yourself. You only find fault. So therefore, a lot of people, they cannot understand this. What is the life journey, life purpose? Life purpose is to see that it is not growing old, but it is to see that you grow inwards. The inwards is where Bhaja Govindam takes place. So you have somebody that's there within you, and that within you is what you are, and all outside is something which comes and goes. It does not have. It's a very clear picture he has given in the form of that Jajjara Dehi. That means Paschat Jivati Jajjara Dehi. The moment that body becomes, the it cannot accept something like that what it used to be earlier. So it becomes infection, infirmary, and when these things are there, Jajjara Dehi, then nobody asks for it. In fact, more and more these cultures I see that how much that we are aping the other culture where that people do not care for the elderly people so much. My brother was at the hospital in USA, and then I went myself and my elder brother, both of us, we went there to morally give courage to my younger brother. So we were there in the hospital whole day we used to spend because nothing else was there in front of us. Talking and all those things. When the nurse comes, when she looks at all three of us, we are similar looking kind of a person. Nurse gets confused every time. Who is the patient out of all these three? That means that he's so joyful that we are in his presence. Though we know that he's a terminal case and cancer is there and difficult, but in spite of it, we have to have kind of a feeling that is there. Whereas the other vets that are there, cancer ward, the patients are lying down and then they were there all alone. There is nobody to take care of them, nobody is living with them or staying with them. Because of that reason, because that we were 4 or 5 of us were regularly going to the hospital, the hospital staff used to provide us the paper plates and all those things, whatever we require, without any hesitation. And then the food that we carry, they say, we can heat it in the microwave. All that they could do because that we were very rare few people that were visiting the hospital. I was thinking that during the week, maybe people busy, that's why they don't visit. On the weekend, probably the family comes. So I was waiting for the weekend, and then the weekend came, Saturday, Sunday. And that day, even some of the hospital staff also do not come. So that means to say, even the staff is also less. And no visitor came to see the patients. Wow, I was so shocked. They said that somebody who has given birth to somebody is responsible for that, responsible for living together. Even such persons do not come at the time of death. So that's what he says that Yavad Vitto Nivasati Gehe, Tavat Vichati Kushalam De. Gatavati, sorry, Yavad Vitto Parjana Saktaha, Tavan Nijaparivaro Raktaha. Pashat Jivati Jajjara Dehi, Vartam Kopina Prushyati Dehi. Nobody asks about that particular point. Nobody inquires about what's happening. Yes, doctors are there, nurses are there, technology is there which will take care of it. But human being is not there. As long as that you don't give that human value for the human being, this is going to be damaging. Yavat pavano nivasati dehe, tavat pruchati kushalam dehe, gatavati vayo deha paye, bharya bibhyati tasmin paye. Yavat pavano nivasati dehe. Dehe means in the body, nivasati lives. As long as this breath, prana, lives in this body, yavat pavanati, yavat pavano nivasati dehe, tavat pruchati kushalam dehe. Until the time that people ask inquiry about the kushalam. But whereas gatavati vayo deha paye, where the moment that the life goes away from this body, bharya bhujyati tasmin kaye. The fond woman, the wife, for whose the body was so important, even she would like to order the things to be taken away. So therefore, bharya bibhyati tasmin kaye. the fear of that body will be there. We respect so much when there is a soul inside this body, isn't it? We respect so much this body. The body is a pseudo I, gets all the respect from the people. So therefore, that basically that otherwise, the moment that it is gone, such a thing, bharya viphriti tasmin kaya. If the wife is afraid of tasmin kaya, that body where the consciousness is not there. So therefore, it's important to see that we take care of this, understand this. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. It is like the way that we are looking for in the moving kind of a wheel, we are looking at the center on which that wheel is mounted. Therefore, it is said, center is that where part of that particular wheel, it's not undergoing the movement. Whereas the rest of the wheel is that where there is movement. But then that movement is based on, dependent on this non-moving stuff inside. This can be both in terms of horizontal waves, that means to say, you just move around, become wealthy and less become wealthy and then more, and all those things that is there, or even the vertical jump. Because in our culture that we have this idea of rebirth, reborn. You might have been a different person, but now you are reborn into a different person, or maybe that you can avoid your rebirth. But what is much more important than this is that whatever that you have gathered now is a tendency which will take us towards that next life. So therefore, that we need to correct in this life itself what we do, what we aspire for, not wait for the next life. Gatavati vayo dehapan bharya vibhrati tasmin kaye. Somebody who is so fond of this body also will run away from this body when the life is gone. Life is not there anymore. It's such a big important thing that we have. The training that is there in giving it that direction, and that's what we have seen. We think that we identify with the people, we identify with our own sick, but then when the time comes, we just can't to hold on to it. We cannot hold on to it. It just goes away. So that is why it's a short-lived. It's like the way that we are all co-passengers. There's nobody called as wife, nobody called as son, nobody called as anybody. All these people are the local arrangement that we are given on the stage that we are together. And then we perform very well. In fact, just because that we are on the film, that we should not stop doing that. We should perform, but only thing is that we should know. That is that we are playing on this. And that's what we need to take care of it. That way, when we do it, then we are able to do that. That means to say we have to have all our attention on something which is supposed to be deep inside the consciousness that is there. The consciousness itself becomes like bharya. The consciousness itself becomes like children. The consciousness itself becomes like a friend. And all those things are nothing but the extension of consciousness. And this is what is Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja does not mean that you are chanting and chanting. Bhaja is that you are recognizing that what is there behind is the divinity. Let's continue the discussion next time when we come to. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.